Hello, my lovely viewers, and welcome. I am Kira, a romantic ace, and welcome to this speed build. So, this idea came along. There was a quiz running around Twitter a couple weeks ago that was mostly making its rounds in the queer communities that I follow and I'm a part of. And it was one of those little, like, what is your aesthetic quizzes, and so the results were things like cottagecore and goblin core, which I have never heard of goblin core, but if that's your aesthetic, more power to you. And the one that I got was piratecore, and the results said something like, your aesthetic is piratecore because you really just want a partner that you can have erotic sword fights with. And I was like, well, that's not a very ace mood, honestly. However, the sword fighting, now that I can get behind, and not that kind of sword fighting, you dirty birdies. But it gave me the idea of, that seems like a great way to just pick a Sims build, is to take a quiz like that that gives you an aesthetic, and then you have to build your build around that aesthetic. So, since I got piratecore, I figured it was going to be pretty straightforward to do a piratecore style build in The Sims 4. Because when I looked it up to see if it meant what I thought it meant, I did find a bunch of Pinterest boards that had like a bunch of screenshots from Pirates of the Caribbean and that very what we think of as, you know, kind of classical pirate aesthetic with the juxtaposition of the worn wood and, you know, sea sprayed everything with that very ornate detailing like what's on these set pieces, because the prow and stern of the ship, those are actually set pieces from Get Famous, and the cannon is as well. It's also a set piece from Get Famous. So we have that, and I think it works really well for this, but I didn't want to try to, like, build it into the build. I wanted them to still be functional. I wanted this still to be a functional build. I didn't want it to be there just for the looks. And I know we have a build already similar to this in Sulani, the Admiral's Wreckage, which is a different style of ship, but it's the same idea. And I wanted this to be very functional. Basically, the idea of this was that the ship had wrecked and one of the crew members, or two of the crew members, because this is only a one-bedroom build, had hauled it up on shore as much as they could and just kind of built their lives here. They didn't figure they had much hope of rescue, for instance. So they were like, you know what? This is a cozy spot, a nice little private island. This mostly will work off-grid if you want it to work off-grid. There's a couple of things that I included that won't work unless you install some solar panels and rain and dew collectors. I don't put those in the build. By the way, you would have to add that yourself if you wanted. But here I am just trying to figure out the floor plan, where to put the bedroom, where to put the bathroom, and I wanted to have a double bed, because I had the bed from Realm of Magic in mind. Because I wanted a canopy bed, and the only other canopy bed is the one from City Living. We have the one from Seasons too, but that's a single bed, and I wanted a double bed in case you wanted to have a pair of Sims live here. And I'm trying to figure out kind of how to put the windows. Those half-moon windows from Cats and Dogs, I figured this was really a good chance to use them, because I don't usually have a spot where they look good. But I figured since this is kind of the top half of the ship, maybe that was the portholes. I cut out a little bit where I was playing with the more properly designed porthole windows from the base game. But I ended up really liking the way those half-moon windows worked. And I thought that was a different way to do the windows. Plus I have these ones from Jungle Adventure that are cut out that I figure they did once they made this into their home. And then those two big floor-to-ceiling windows from Island Living. You can see here in the galley, I figured this was mostly the original galley, so it's a lot of Jungle Adventure. I think that goes very well with this. And then that fridge and stove are both base game and functional off the grid if you want to use them that way. As I'm also here checking and making sure the cabinets don't clip into the fridge, and that one actually doesn't at that height. I was really surprised. But I really do just love those Jungle Adventure cabinets and counters, and I thought it looked very, very nice for that. And then that table is from Jungle Adventure as well. And I only have it seat two people because I shoved it up against the side. I figured, maybe they like to look out over the water while they eat. I wanted most of the stuff in this build to look like it was either part of the original ship, washed up from the shipwreck, or built from materials that were already around the island. So like this bathroom is clearly not the original bathroom of the ship, but they kind of built it out of the lava rocks that were around. And I thought about using that stand-up shower. I thought that maybe they had built that from the driftwood, but it didn't really, it was starting to veer away from that pirate core with the ornate but worn out look. And so that's why I put that bathtub, as well as this sink from Jungle Adventure again, because it looked like it could have been constructed from stuff that washed up. They took a glass bowl and they made it into this sink, and they took like maybe an old cabinet and they made it into the base of the sink. And that mirror is base game. There's actually a lot of stuff in base game that works really well for this like pirate core look, because in the base game a lot of these more ornate items are tied to Princess Cordelia, who has a backstory of being at one point living on the sea and like dating pirates and stuff like that. The Sims 4 doesn't have a lot of lore, but that is one of the pieces of lore that it does have. So it was a good opportunity to make those work, because I don't do a lot of builds that really works for. Most of the builds that I do are more contemporary. Even when I do a mansion, I don't usually do that really ornate style. I don't like it very much for myself, and therefore I'm not usually very interested in building with it. But I thought for this, it looked just perfect. We have all of these items that really suit that aesthetic, and a lot of stuff that goes together, like that armchair and the little chairs that I put around the gaming table from Get Together. Because, you know, pirates are gonna gamble, and, you know, a game of cards definitely fits. And these, like, chests, these storage chests, they are functional. I never use them, except for in, like, Realm of Magic type builds, which that's what this bed is from as well. I really wanted a canopy bed for this, and I don't have a lot of builds that really suit this Realm of Magic bed, because this Realm of Magic bed is a very specific look with that stained glass canopy. But I thought it just looked so nice in this build, that very ornate but still comfortable look. And then this mirror from City Living, which I don't get to use enough. This wardrobe from Vampires, which I don't get to use enough. And this rug from Get Famous, which I use all the time, actually, because most of the builds that I do have some kind of worn or lived in look. And it just, the colors went so nice with that swatch on the bed that I thought it just suited this so well. But the whole just look and feel of this really kind of appealed to me. It reminded me of back when you used to be able to go to Renaissance festivals. The Renaissance Festival in my area has a whole like pirate village that probably came along with the advent of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I didn't go when I was a kid. My parents never took me when I was a kid. My dad is very against socializing. And he's very against spending money on things that are just for fun. He's a trip, but yeah, they have this little pirate village, so that was also a big part of my inspiration, was just memories of what that looks like. And you can see here I'm trying to place some curtains for these windows, because since this is a diagonal wall, you can see when I slot those windows in, they get wider, but the curtains don't do that. And like, I get why they get wider, because they're made to snap to full tiles, and a diagonal wall, of course, is longer than just a wall that's on the regular edge of the tile. But it makes it hard to hang curtains. But I liked those island living curtains. I thought they looked like something that could have been made from the old sails or from bed linens that they didn't need anymore. And just letting in that breeze, you know. There's a lot of Get Famous in this build, because Get Famous has all of those like pirate ship sets and stuff. And a lot of base game, because again, so much of that stuff is just ornate. And doesn't go with most of what I use. But back to those chests, they do store just items. So I use them sometimes in Realm of Magic builds, because it's nice to have your potions ingredients in there rather than trying to keep them in your Sims inventory all the time. It means you'll have to take them out when you want to make a potion, but it's a nice way to kind of categorize things that you don't want in your household inventory, but you don't want in your Sims inventory either. And like bookcases, everything that's stored in one chest is stored in all of them. So, you know, you can't use it for organizing as much, because what I would really love those to be able to do is have like one chest that is just plants, for instance, one chest that is just collectibles, one chest that is just crystals. And you can't do that, which sucks a little bit, but I see the utility. I see why it's done that way. And I took all of these cracks on the walls from like Vampires and Jungle Adventure because I really wanted this ship to look like it had been through hell. I mean, it's broken into pieces, for goodness sakes. You know, it should look like it's pretty weathered and battered. That top floor, by the way, is something that would not have been original to the ship that I figure they built from some driftwood. Because obviously that's supposed to be the deck of the ship. You wouldn't have a big room just on the top of your ship. Like, you wouldn't even be able to see to steer because that's so tall. So, but I figured, you know, they're making this into a house, and I didn't know what I was going to do with that room just yet. You could turn that into another bedroom if you wanted to. I think it would work really nice as a little bedroom. But I also wanted that to be the access to the deck, rather than trying to fit the stairs going up somewhere else. Like up the side of the ship. I didn't want you to have to walk outside in order to access all the areas of the ship, because Sulani, for the most part, has really nice weather, but you do get some really nasty thunderstorms, especially in the winter. So I wanted everything to be indoors, which you'll see here, actually. This is all the outdoor style lighting in here right now, because I have the ceiling broken because of the crow's nest. And so you have to play some tricks with walls and stuff to try to make that work. Which I'll do a little bit later. But here I'm just kind of pulling everything ornate and cool looking that I possibly could. Stuff that I never use, like those boxes from City Living. I never use those, but I thought they looked like little jewelry chests or something that they maybe could have grabbed. And there's the little bookcase there if you want to have your Sims read books, if you want this to be off the grid. There is also a laptop that I put on that desk, and I liked the idea of the laptop because your Sims can take it with them. So if you do want to play this off the grid and you don't want to try to find a place to put solar cell or solar panels and dew collectors on an island where everything is supposed to be salvage, basically, you could pick it up and take it with you to a library or someplace that does have power, and then you don't have to fight other Sims for a computer on the library lot. Which, you know, if you're like me, you just reset the offending Sim and make them get off the computer, but I'm terrible like that. I'm having to reset Sims so often lately to get them to stop doing things that I don't want them to do, because canceling the interaction a lot of times right now isn't working, and it's very frustrating. They'll just continue doing the action anyway. They'll walk all the way across the house even though I've told them to stop moving, and so it's like, well, if I reset them, at least they just end up teleporting there instead of me having to watch them take 2 hours to walk across a property. It's so frustrating. But here I am just now kind of filling the place up with treasure. When else do I get to use these gold bars? Those would be so heavy. Gold is incredibly heavy. It's very, very dense. So, like, that would probably break the floor to have that many of them, especially if you figure those treasure chests are also full of gold. Like, there is no way this would structurally support that, but I thought it was pretty. Because if it's a pirate core thing, you know, you have to have all this treasure. So I got all these cool looking vases and stuff, and I really went wild with the statues, just stuff that looks like it could have been salvaged or stolen. And this cup here, I put on this little stand and I wall it off with some fencing because I figured maybe that was the Holy Grail. I was really thinking of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade there, where it's like, yeah, you really don't want just anybody getting a hold of that. You know, lest they choose poorly. Because if you've seen the movie, spoilers if you haven't, by the way, then you'll know that the Holy Grail that they chose was not very ornate at all. And here in this little nook where I'm putting the ladder, we don't have a Jolly Roger flag, so I grabbed, I think that's the Renegades flag from Get Famous, and then also the Pride flag, because be gay, do crimes, am I right? I thought that was just something to have in that little nook to keep it from being so boring, because that is a very large space to have the ladders in. Obviously, it would just be a mast in real life, and you would have just a ladder that went up the side. But in The Sims 4, the ladders demand to have tiles around them in order to be functional. So, and I wanted it to be indoors. Again, I didn't want you to have to go outside to access any part of this build. So, and outside, since the crow's nest is 2 levels up from the deck here, you would still have to have like a platform halfway up for your Sims to step on to get onto the second ladder, because we can't make multi-story ladders just off of the ones that you can place in a build. You can on the dock. So I have actually done beachfront homes in the past where I have like a second floor deck, and you can put a diving platform on those, and it will just make the ladder long enough for your Sims to climb up. And I have tested it in the past, at least. I don't know if they've broken this with patches in the, since I built those, but they do work. And it was actually really cool to watch Sims dive off of like a second floor deck for the first time. If I'd had room on this build, I might have done that, but I would have had to put everything so far out in the water, and then I wouldn't have been able to use the set pieces for the prow and stern, and I would have just been really disappointed. But you can see here, I'm again trying to bring back some of that ornate look again with that rug, and then also taking this like magic carpet looking rug and layering that on top. I thought that really went with this very well. And just throwing some plants on and stuff. These crates that are from Cats and Dogs went really nice with this as well. But like these tropical plants that it looks like maybe they dug up and brought inside to kind of take care of. And then also this little ship's model. I figured that was maybe the ship as she once was. They had made that model just to kind of remember those times, whether they were good or bad. And then these little cannonball planters, those are actually supposed to be cannonballs. And I figured, well, they didn't really need the cannon anymore. They still have it sitting there because it was always there. But they planted some plants in the cannonballs. Those are probably exploding ordnance cannonballs. And then adding some off-the-grid lighting, these candles. So that candelabra is from base game. And then I also add the wall sconces here in a few minutes from Vampires, which I thought just, again, went so well. And you can see here now I'm realizing why my lighting is broken, and I have to come in here and wall that off and then put just an archway so that your Sims can access it. Because it's the same problem that we had with the get-together cafes, where it thinks it's all outdoor lighting. And in this lighting here that you can see inside just fine, but I just don't like the quality of the lighting. If you want to take screenshots in here, it's not going to look good if you don't have the right lighting. So, I wanted this to still be a very functional build for your Sims. Plus, like I've said before, your Sims will think it's outdoors. So it interferes if you have big storms and so forth. And I'm putting these lights on the outside, which I thought looked like they could have been part of the original ship. Of course, most of the time you wouldn't have lights on a pirate ship like this, because they would kind of want to be able to sneak up on you in the dead of night if they wanted to, and you can't do that if you have gas lamps off the side of a ship. Like, how would you even light them? But, they found them, they put them on. Maybe they just wanted the ambiance, or maybe they thought it was going to help them get rescued or something like that. And up on the top here, I figured those were lanterns that they had made out of salvage rather than something that had come with it. And now I'm kind of decorating the land around it. So you can see here I have this little graveyard that I figure is for some of the sailors who didn't make it. So that's the ship's anchor attached to like maybe a rock that had always been there, and they put a little plaque to memorialize their crewmates, and then just ringed it off with some lava rocks. I didn't really want to go into debug for this. My computer was struggling a little bit already just for how long this build went on, because this was This was a pretty long build for the size of lot that it was. So, and you can't use terrain tools on the beachfront lots, so I was going to try to use these ground cover pieces, because I've seen people do that to make the terrain look like it's a little bit raised, but it just did not go with the sand. So I took them off, and we're just going to have to pretend that maybe it's been so long, or maybe the bodies never washed up at all, and so this is just literally a memorial to lost sailors. Who knows? You know, I would say it's a little morbid, except this is literally a shipwreck. So, but I just really love the foliage from Island Living. I think it's just so lush and so pretty, and I tried to pick colors of the bougainvillea that went with the surrounding plants. And that jungle adventure plant just winding around the side of that canopy, I thought looked really pretty. You know, they went and dug it up and they made it fit. And then these palm trees, I love those palm trees. They look so much nicer than the ones from base game. I love the detail on them a lot more than the sort of plain look. And then also that plumeria tree. Plumerias are one of my favorite flowers. My parents went to Maui for one of their wedding anniversaries, and then my mother and I went to Kauai for my college graduation. And from that one, we brought back a cutting of a plumeria plant. And for reference, my family lives in Colorado. It's very different from most environments on the Hawaiian Islands, at least a place where a plumeria tree would live, because if you start going up in altitude on the islands, it actually does start looking quite a lot like Colorado, but the plumeria trees don't grow there naturally, and so it took years before it finally flowered, but it did flower. And this was after, like, we had the trunk break a couple times and we thought it was maybe dead, and so we just like cut it and replanted it, and fortunately it grew, and we did end up with some nice white plumeria flowers. So I really love the look of that. Anytime that I have a build where I think it could possibly fit, I'm always trying to pull that plumeria tree out. I think it's just so pretty. And then also to have some of these climbing vines from Get Together, because they're supposed to be like hibiscus flowers, which when I was young, we also had a hibiscus plant from somewhere. I don't know where we got it from, but I'm just adding these last little bits of lighting and a few finishing touches. So we're almost on to the screenshots. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this build, please do let me know in the comments section. Give it a like, hit that bell button when you subscribe so you can get notified when I post a new video. So yeah, enjoy whatever it is you do between now and my next video. Catch you later.